like this. There we go. So what I'll be covering today, I'll be talking about the problem of waste tyres, who Tyre Stewardship Australia is, what we do, and some of the market development initiatives we've undertaken over the last couple of years. So yeah, as I said, who we are, what we do, and market development. I suppose the question is why was the scheme created? Why was TSA created? And that's a pretty good representation of the problem there, in that market failures have led to situations such as the one that's pictured there, which is the Great Stall stockpile, which many of us would know about, which is around 2 million EPUs. There's a similar, well, not similar, there's a large stockpile in Numurkah. Also Longford in Tasmania also has a stockpile, and this has been a result of a kind of cash economy that's operated for a long time with a lack of transparency and accountability in the supply chain. The issue with this is that it can create fires, as we talked about with batteries. In Melbourne, we had a fire recently in January 2016 in Campbellfield where about 100 to 150,000 tyres went up. There was about 10,000 litres of water per minute was used to put that fire out, and it created obviously large disruption to the region and the community, and not to mention the environment there. So the question would be, well, how does a situation like this arise? And I suppose the numbers kind of indicate what the scale of the problem we have with tyres, and where there's approximately 56 million EPUs disposed of in Australia in 2015-16, which is equivalent to around 450,000 tonnes. Only 10% of those are recycled locally. A further 27 are exported as a fuel replacement, so a tyre-derived fuel, and 63% are either disposed to landfill or have a destination unknown. I'll just point out that the majority of those which are disposed to landfill are mining tyres in remote areas. So a lot of the tyres that are recycled are the truck and passenger units, which are kind of in more urban areas and are therefore more accessible. But mining tyres are still an issue, but predominantly what we're dealing with now is the recycling of truck and passenger units. So I suppose what those numbers evidence, just very quickly, is that there's an oversupply. There's an incredibly large supply of tyres, and we have a lack of demand for them. Tyres are made to not break down, which we all love when we're driving them, but it makes it very difficult to process them once they reach their end of life. So there's a lot more work we need to do in that space. So I suppose given the scale of the issue, something had to be done about it, so government got together with industry and has created TSA. TSA is established to deliver the National Product Stewardship Scheme, which aims to improve the sustainable management of end-of-life tyres, build a strong and profitable recycling market, and remove poor operators from the market. It's a voluntary scheme. Where TSA is a not-for-profit company created to administer the scheme. It's formed by the tyre industry, who essentially make up the majority of our board, and endorsed by all levels of government. It's funded by an ACCC endorsed levy of 25 cents per equivalent passenger unit imported into Australia by those that are voluntary members of the scheme, and participation is free. And we'd like to see more participants in the scheme. Just as a quick history, we've been active for 2 years. The first staff member started in June 2015. I was the second staff member. We have a 5-year ACCC endorsed levy. We're currently under review, which was written into the determination that enabled TSA to become active. That report will be published in the coming weeks to months or so in the next 8 weeks or so. And then we'll probably go through a review again at the lapse of the 5 years, which won't be too long, too far away. So I suppose I'll just talk now a little bit about that's how we're set up, a little bit about what we do. So probably one of the primary tenets that underpins what TSA does, and just to mention, to differentiate how TSA is slightly different from some of the other product stewardship schemes, is we don't run our own collection systems. Essentially, there is a fairly good collection system, as we would all be aware, for tyres, because we all go to our retailers, buy a new set, and give our old set over. So there's an accumulated supply via that mechanism. But what we do is audit and accredit the supply chain to ensure market participants adhere to the principles and practices that support the environmentally sound disposal of tyres. So predominantly auditing all of the recyclers. We have 1,200 accredited retailers and about 30 collectors and recyclers as well. There's a number of member categories. Local government and fleet operators are also member categories as well. But other activities we also undertake are education and awareness in the space. space, and that was evidenced by the very brief first slide I showed, which you may have seen in the paper, which shows the scale, represents the scale kind of thematically of waste tyres by similar to the Sydney Opera House evidence there, relating it to, again, the Opera House and the Melbourne CBD. We also undertake market development, as I'll talk about in a moment, in more detail, and of course administration and reporting. Before I go into the market development side of things, I'd just like to talk briefly about I suppose the benefits, particularly to local government, given this is a local government audience, I thought I'd put the spiel in about becoming members of the scheme. There's a category for local government, and given that we're a voluntary scheme, probably one of the key mechanisms we have to wield to encourage our participants within the scheme is using the market force, market pressure to get participants in the scheme. This kind of evidences that I suppose the first, and also I believe Helen kind of picked up on this, that one of the key factors in ensuring the success of a scheme is that the initial transaction point at disposal. So when it's disposed of, we encourage all consumers and local governments and alike to utilise TSA accredited entities, because they're audited by for free by the levy to ensure that the tyres that they handle go to a productive or sustainable end use. Those entities that aren't accredited, there's no verification process in that. So how is that important to councils? Well, if you're going to accredited entities, then you're lessening the likelihood of picking up that stockpile further down the road. You can also support local tyre recycling businesses that are trying to do the right thing and are potentially being undercut by illegitimate operators. So that's the spiel for any local government participants here. We're looking for more members in that space. We have great uptake with the retailers and recyclers, but we'd like to put more market pressure on via the procurement capacity of the local government. So I'll kind of move on now to, I was just giving a general overview of TSA in essence, just to create a foundation. Now I'm going to talk, a little bit more about market development in action, some of the key projects that we undertake, some of the key outcomes that we've delivered in the 18 months or so we've been active in the space in terms of funding projects, and some of the future directions we're looking to go with the market development activities we're undertaking. So the key mechanism that we have to undertake market development initiatives is the Tyre Stewardship Research Fund. We've invested close to $3 million so far, and the fund is currently open, so if you have any great market development ideas, please hit me up over dinner or alike. We have dollar for dollar funding available between 50 and 200,000. We pretty much spend $1 million annually on R&D. The objective is to increase consumption of Australian recycled tyre product through R&D, but we have had a large emphasis on R&D initially because that was what was stipulated when the scheme was created, but we are going through a process of assessing how we might be a bit more innovative or alter our funding structures to be able to accommodate more diverse funding streams and project models, potentially looking at infrastructure or working collaboratively with councils to understand issues around aggregation, looking at remote area business models, understanding the business case associated with clean-up of stockpiles. We're not saying we're going to do that, but we're kind of assessing our options and engaging with stakeholders to look at what new mechanisms we can unveil in future. So as I said, if you've got any ideas, please feel free to give us a call or hit us up tonight. So I suppose one of the key areas that we focus on in Australia in relation to new market development activities is roads. There's a large utilisation of tyre crumb in jurisdictions such as California and Arizona and in Europe. So TSA has been pretty active in that space, funding work with Vic Roads, Transport Main Roads, Australian Road Research Board, Sustainability Victoria, so many acronyms, Environment and Heritage Protection, Main Roads WA, and the Australian Asphalt and Pavement Association. So when you engage with the sector, there are so many, and particularly R&D, there's so many, a breadth of stakeholders that you need to engage with to be able to deliver outcomes. What we're looking to do is address specification barriers primarily to increase crumb rubber uptake and increase the uptake of spray seal. We're also promoting the benefits, and also we're willing to fund the manufacturers to innovate in terms of business practices to create these products at a cost competitive rate. In Queensland, with the work that we're doing, we're focusing on open-graded asphalt and spray seals, looking at dense-graded asphalts in Victoria and structural fatigue layers, and Western Australia is looking at gap-graded asphalt specifications. But essentially what we're doing is working with each state on, I suppose, an aspect of the problem to understand how that relates to the specifications, undertake the testing there, and then look to roll that out over a national framework through the Austroads of those types of working groups. So it's kind of an action-based learning. We're kind of getting in there, working on a state-by-state basis, and then looking to accumulate that knowledge and learnings to take it to a more harmonised kind of national approach. That's the theory anyway, so we're working with these organisations to do that. We have a number of kind of broader types of initiatives that we undertake, such as looking at the rail sector. So there's the Rail Manufacturing Cooperative Research Centre at the University of Wollongong. So it's looking at the application of tyres as a sub-base to a rail ballast to reduce vibration, to enhance the life of the ballast, and also allow more trains to travel quicker to create efficiencies in that regard. Infrastructure, we're looking at prefabricated housing, so looking at lightweight concrete, permeable pavements. Thermal processing, we're doing some broader research. We're not funding startups in thermal processing, but looking at, I suppose, the numbers and some of the other aspects of that, and lightweight concrete as well. Just as a more particular case study about some of the market development we're doing, which is one I quite enjoy, is the chip Tyre, Bioenergy Australia, and Sequel Drill and Blast, which is using a high-speed polymer coating for rubber-fueled explosives. So really it's looking at using crumb rubber as a mixture in the ammonium nitrate prills. That's less susceptible to moisture, which is one of the key reasons as to why explosives can't be used in the mining sector, and it can inhibit the capacity of those mines to be productive on an ongoing basis. So therefore, they kind of came up with the idea, and they conceptually understood that they could come up with this product using crumb rubber, but what they needed to do was to upscale that into high-speed application so that it could be used on a large scale. So this is Dorothy. I don't know why it's called Dorothy, but Dorothy is the mixing bowl that produces 11 tonnes of explosives per batch. Yes, so good bang for our buck in that project. Sorry. And it's going quite well. I'm looking forward to going to visit them in the near future to see some things being blown up, kind of like a Mythbusters type excursion. So it's a fun one. Another project which is going quite well is polymeric powders, who were set up in regional Victoria in Geelong, Sorry, and just this will look to consume around 30,000 tonnes per annum of crumb rubber, which is a great outcome in terms of the volumes and potential to be utilised around the world. And also this project, which is happening with polymeric powders in Geelong, is an innovative approach too. And what they're doing is taking crumb rubber, the first point there, then mechanically breaking it down to increase the surface area, then treating that chemically. Then once they have the crumb rubber treated that way, they're then able to mix it with raw plastics, polyolefins and alike, to create a composite material which can be used for a number of applications, 3D printing, what else, and piping. So they're looking to get into the piping market. They found that to be quite a large market that's relatively unsophisticated in the manufacturing that's required of that. So we're in conversations with them about how we can expand the initial piece of R&D that we've done, and they'd be looking to consume a couple of thousand tonnes per annum of Tyre-derived product through that. So just to summarise in terms of the process that we've gone through and some of the key learnings that we've had in the space, we've taken a real action learning approach to this, which is to get in there, do some projects, find out what works, build relationships, partnerships, and kind of create a presence as much as we can within those sectors and demonstrate that we've come to play. We want to get involved. And from having done that, we've created strong partnerships, and we're getting better data and information, which enables us to make more informed decisions about how we move forward in future. And we've developed strong networks and diverse portfolio of projects in that regard. And with better information, I'll touch on the MEM process again, just to finish up. We'll begin to focus more strategically in terms of particular areas that could require more uptake. And one of the pieces of work which we've done in the market development space of late is with the a meeting of environment ministers type process, where each of the environment ministers meet a couple of times a year, and we've developed a national market development strategy. I would love to show it to you today because it's finished, but needs to go through 5 levels of approvals before I'd be able to do that. I did have a slide here, but I would have got in trouble if I had have shown it. But essentially what we've done is to look to quantify the short, medium and long-term viability of various product streams and market areas, and some of the key areas that we'd be looking at, which spray seals, adhesives, aggregates and potentially the pyrolysis market. But regardless, it's a great strategy because it's brought together, Western Australia, South Australia, Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland in terms of that, and co-funded by TSA to deliver this collaborative piece of work, and will create a framework for us to move forward. So essentially we've created a great foundation and look forward to collaborating more in future to deliver benefits to the industry and the community. Thank you.